It matches this. Yeah. It's fun to get on that other side of your brain.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The very first thing I want to say is thank you so very much for coming to our special meeting of the Watershed Council. I do appreciate your time. I know that there's a lot going on. We've got a very condensed schedule, and so in the interest of all of our time, I'd like to go ahead and get started with the meeting so that we can go ahead and move through the business that we have at hand. So this is a very special meeting in the sense that it is a leadership committee meeting. All of the meetings, of course, are open to the general membership. I want to make that clear. But we felt it was necessary to call this meeting because there are some nuts and bolts business that, as a council, we need to address. And so that's the purpose and the function of this meeting. Now, there are some very specific things that I would like to cover. And so I'll try to make this quick. Again, my name is Jamie Whiteford. For those of you who have not met me, I am the district scientist with the Ventura County Resource Conservation District, and I also hold the position of Watershed Coordinator. To my right is my colleague, Andy Sverka, also with the Ventura Resource Conservation District, and also acting as our watershed coordinator.
And I just want to add real quick that we are recording the meeting, just so you guys do know. We're trying to add in a conference calling ability moving forward for people who can't make meetings. So we do have Sam Jenkins from California Coastal Conservancy on to join the meeting too, just so you guys are aware of it.
When you say you're recording the meeting, you mean you opened it up on a phone line, or you're actually recording it?
We have a conference call going right now, so it's a video stream also.
Oh, and you can actually record that too.
Yeah.
Which helps you for notes later.
Yeah, exactly. So it helps everything.
We're unsure as to the quality of that feed, but it would be nice to sort of be able to update that moving forward. I think it's an important part of our transparency, and also it's just an important way for the larger watershed group to be able to contribute and participate, and also understand what's going on when we have issues like this where it's difficult for people to attend for one reason or another. Again, thank you everyone for coming. I've worked through welcomes and introductions. So meeting purpose. We have some very specific things there that we need to address. They are illustrated in the agenda. Hopefully everyone has a copy of that. There are copies in the back if you do want something to refer to. Just real quickly, to the purpose of the meetings. So we need to determine the composition of the leadership committee. So for those of you who have not had a chance to review the charter for the Ventura River Watershed Council, which was last edited January of 2017, part of the way this organization is set up is that there is the general membership, and then from that general membership there is the leadership committee, and then a smaller portion of that leadership committee is made up of the executive leadership committee. Now the difference between the general membership and the leadership committee is that the leadership committee has both. Okay? So that means that while, of course, this is an inclusive body, general membership is very important in that they offer feedback to us. At the end of the day, when it comes to specific business of the council, it is up to the leadership committee to make their vote. Okay, so we have a leadership committee composition that's made up of various sectors throughout the watershed. And then within those sectors, we have representatives. And it has just been one of those things that in the last over 2 years, there has been changes in the composition of that leadership makeup. And so it is time for us to sort of decide within the organizations that are already part of the leadership committee, who's going to become the primary contact to have that vote, to speak for that body. And if there is not an individual, or if that organization decides that they no longer wish to be part of the executive of the leadership committee, then we as a body need to decide who's going to fill that void. We need to make changes. Okay, so we need to work through the composition of the leadership committee. We also, the Ventura County Resource Conservation District has been the watershed coordinator now for, gosh, almost a year, I suspect it's been.
8 months.
So when we first came into the position, we had a 4-month work plan, and then we had a 12-month long work plan. That was actually presented quite a while ago, but was never adopted. And so we need to actually adopt the 2019-2020 work plan that we've been operating under. And we also have to give consideration to the 2020-2021 work plan, as well as the budget, et cetera. So at the very least, we need to adopt the work plan that we're actually operating under currently. It's very important to me that we also keep in mind that there's been a long time since we've met, and particularly we as the coordinator have not had a chance to speak with the leadership committee individually or collectively. So I want to make sure that it's clear to you that this is also a listening session for us. You, as part of the leadership committee, essentially tell us what you need from us. All right, we're just the coordinator. We serve at your pleasure. So whatever it is that you feel you need from us, we're here to listen to that and do what we can to accommodate those requests. And then last but not least, it's always good in a relationship to have honest dialogue. So that's very important here. It's time for us to have honest dialogue, recalibrate where we are, see where we want to go. Okay, so this is an opportunity for us to have that conversation. So the meeting objectives are, we're going to update the leadership committee roster. Now we're going to update the roster, but what will happen is that the general membership must review it. All right, so even though they don't have a vote, they must review it first. They have to have 7 days in which to review it, in which case we can actually, or the leadership committee can actually vote on it and move it into permanent status. So that's the goal, is to get that ready so it's available for review by the general membership at our upcoming meeting, December 5th. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So then at that point, the leadership committee members present can vote for it, and it'll be on its way. And that's true for the rest of the objectives. So the leadership committee roster needs to be updated. The executive leadership committee roster also needs to be updated. And then we need to adopt the 2019-2020 work plan. And then we have other things that we'd like to discuss as well. So I have burned through quite some time, and I want to now open it up to our general introductory phase so that we can get a sense of who's here in case we don't already know. So I'll start on my left.
Hi, Diane. You feel friends with Ventura
And literally say hello to you.
Steve Alderman, County Supervisor Bennett's office, membership of the leadership committee under the general government category. Happy to stay on or pass on any other.
John Lundy representing all high basin groundwater management agencies.
Emily Ayala representing the Olympic City, Lynn Jensen with Ventura County Building. Kate Long, Ventura Land Trust.
Paul Jenkins, Proprietor Foundation, the Philadelphia Coalition.
And Lynn Rodriguez, Watersheds Coalition of Ventura County. I'm not a member, but I like to go to these meetings.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, again, for attending. Okay, so this is the current composition of the leadership committee as is reflected in the current iteration of the charter. Okay, so this is the 2017 version. That was the last time it was updated. And so here we have not only the leadership committee, which is, every time I check this thing, it works just fine. But when I actually want to use it, it doesn't. All right, so here we go. As Steve indicated, there are individual sectors represented here. And then within each of those particular groupings, we have specific organizations. Okay, so in the business and landowner category, we have Farm Bureau, we have Emily, et cetera. So what we need to do, for example, we have, I think it was Brian Stark with the Ventura.
Oh, I got land.
Oh, yeah, the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, who moved on, and I'm struggling to find his name on this. I'm wondering.
It's under environmental, it's the third one down.
It's the blank next to the garage.
Oh, that's why it's not there. That's why I can't find it. And so we have that typical business to attend to populate this table. And I also want to bring up the subject that the Ventura County RCD, our organization, is actually part of this roster as well, meaning that we have a vote. Okay, now the question is, do we remain on this, within this roster, given our dual position, or do we make an alteration there? Okay, and that's entirely up to you. That vote would be something that we would recluse ourselves from. We have that freedom to do so. So it's entirely up to the leadership committee to decide the answer to that question. But I want to make sure to raise it. Okay, so Steve, you've said you can stay, you can go. For our purposes, it would be simpler if you would just stay. And then the question becomes, does Brian remain as the alternate, or is that business that you'd like to tend to?
Well, given he's an elected board member of the Casitas Water District, it does pose some challenges. Nevertheless, we don't have a whole large cadre of people to pick from within Supervisor Bennett's office. Why don't we just leave him there?
Okay, very good. And what I would also like to make mention, please provide us updated contact information for anybody who's on the table. This is how we reach out to everyone. We've worked very diligently to try to reach out to everybody who's reflected here to try to make sure we have the proper names and to let them know about these proceedings. And yet we're running into some difficulty with that. So make sure that you do provide us updated information. There is a sign-in sheet in the back. So please let us know that way, or by conversing with us, send us an email so we can update that information. So then we move into the Ventura County Watershed Protection District. What are your feelings on that? Perfect. City of Ventura, Jennifer, you're here, and you were the alternate.
Yes.
And
It should be Susan.
Susan Rundgren, okay.
Who was that for? Sorry, this would be Susan.
Susan?
That's
Okay.
the alternate.
No, as the primary. And I believe that Susan had also sat in for the Watershed Coalition of Ventura County.
She's the steering committee rep.
Yeah, she's
One
the
of the two steering committee reps,
Okay.
which is not really connected to the executive leadership committee. I mean, you guys, well, anyway, that's a matter for another day, because we need to have a discussion in this group about who should be the two steering committee reps. Because we had to like quickly pick two while we were going through the whole process of Prop 1. So that's another.
Yeah.
Another matter.
Another matter. There's lots of nuts and bolts to attend to. And now we are, thank you, Jennifer. And so now we are at the City of Ojai. Sorry, do we have to represent Ojai?
Nope.
Okay. If anybody knows Greg, Andrea, or anyone from the City of Ojai, please let them know that these are important proceedings, and if there's some updates.
We may, later on, if we talk about the Localizing California Waters event in Yosemite and the fact that two members of the Planning Commission and one member of the City Council were at that event, and we're very connected to the regional breakout groups that we did representing this area, we should probably, I mean, I don't know if we want elected officials, or not elected officials, but the Planning Commission members were very engaged, and might be nice to have them participate in this, because Greg has never been an active member of the group. I mean, he's, I think, maybe come twice in all the years I've been coming to these meetings. So it might be better to get somebody that's more connected in right now doing stuff.
And again, going back to the objectives of this meeting, honest dialogue is important. If you are feeling as though within this group there are those that are not as engaged, we have to have a strong council, okay? And part of that is showing leadership via the leadership committee. If you are simply unable to be engaged because your scheduling doesn't allow it or what have you, then you need to step back from that position. And the same goes if there's others that you feel like, well, maybe they're not as engaged and we could find another alternative to that, then please speak up. I mean, that's the unfortunate part of having this role, is we have to be honest. So that's something to be considered. I believe that, we have reached out to everyone, and by we, I mean Andy, has reached out to everyone. And so I'm sure that we've reached out to City of Ojai, and we may have heard that exact same message, that they're not as interested in this leadership.
Yeah, there's a limit for staffing there, and just not enough people. So it's actually a really good recommendation to be reaching out that way. It's a good idea. So I'll make sure to pursue that.
Yeah, someone like Ray Powers might be interested.
Okay.
And he was there.
All right, good.
So is the committee good with that suggestion?
No
All right.
opposing.
So we're moving into the California Coastal Conservancy. Now, Sam was hoping to be able to join us via conference call, and hopefully he will be at a later time. It's simply he's spatially disconnected from this area, and so it's difficult for him to make these meetings. We are making every attempt to plan as far out as possible to be able to accommodate those his travel plans and others as well. And so what I would say is that while he's not here right now, they are engaged, and I would presume that they'll continue in this position. Okay, we're moving into water and sanitary. So we have Casitas Municipal Water District.
Good, Brian.
That's okay here. So, for the primary, I was just actually hired our general manager.
Okay.
So, we got discussed this one. We actually shut it down, for the primary, I put myself in, Brian.
Okay.
And then, for the alternate.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ventura River Water District.
No person.
You'll leave that.
Okay. Ojai Valley Sanitation.
Not here.
Is,
You probably leave the alternate blank for now.
okay. What is your sense, Andy, from conversations? And-
I haven't got they didn't return my calls from them.
Okay, so in this case, we've simply not been able to connect. Is Jeff Palmer still active? He's just really busy. Okay.
He's the general manager. Lost his enthusiasm for the Watershed Council over some issues involving his district some years ago. And this was
Okay.
I don't know how we remove them from the list. Very significant watershed.
Well, it sounds like we simply need to work hard to re-engage.
Yeah,
Yep, we'll do.
we'll meet with them.
That should hopefully solve that issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll leave it as is, except we'll blank out the wrong sheets.
Yep.
So Miners Oak.
Keep it the same.
Ohio.
You got John on there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Put me, John Mundy is the primary, and move CC Vandermeer to the secondary or alternate.
Got it.
Jerry Conroe was on the board, but has since left and moved out of there.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, we get to DCRC.
Oh, Jimmy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What have the Upper Ventura groundwater Basin Agency? I wonder if we should add that.
There's a lot of overlap once there's an interest.
Yeah. Bruce Kugler would be. Yeah.
So are you suggesting, Emily, to add in an addition, so have 6 under water and sanitary?
I would think so. You know, it's a similar entity to the only groundwater basin, but it's on the side of the valley. But there is overlap in representation. I'm on that board, actually,
So do we need to add in a sixth line, or should we just have Ojai Basin GMA slash? And have
They're
it
separate.
They're separate.
separate? Okay.
Yeah.
I would add the agency in, it's gonna be here forever, and that's significant with the groundwater.
Okay.
It's a standalone agency with its own responsibilities.
Well, in that same vein, Pyru and all of these.
They're not as big.
They're not.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so we're suggesting, Emily, to add in who? Upper.
Ventura River Watershed.
Groundwater.
Now, the only issue, and I apologize, I should know the charter inside and out,
We do have
but
to
the
vote.
only issue is I believe we are constrained with the numbers of groups that we can have.
Yeah, I think the numbers were set up to provide some
Balance.
balance, you know?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it might be that because, you know, there's already in the mix, that it's already represented.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
the problem, is that it was kind of designed to have, whatever that is, what is it, 6?
5, so that is our maximum we're allowed in that group per the charter.
5, 5, 3, whatever that is.
Yeah, 5.
So if we, obviously this is an evolution, right? And so if we feel as though, I don't know that there is any one of these water and sanitation organizations that could be replaced by the upper.
Well, because OBGMA was the only groundwater management agency in the watershed, it seems like, and those two are doing similar things, maybe they can decide amongst themselves which one should be the rep for groundwater sustainability work.
Yeah, let me talk to Bruce. Maybe we put it slash
Mhm.
Upper Ventura River, and then we can determine
Right.
one's the primary.
I would like that as a compromise.
They can always come to the general meetings and express a point of view, they just want to have the vote except for when.
Well, we'll just get together.
Absolutely.
and Talk about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Emily. And thank you for the group for that conversation. Okay, so let's move into land management recreation. Again, the Ventura County Resource Conservation District does have the watershed coordinator position as well as have a vote on the leadership committee. So the question for the committee is, do we maintain that or do we make a change?
Was that an issue when Casitas had a position?
That would have, we wouldn't have been aware of that, so.
No, it wasn't an issue.
And we haven't had a leadership committee meeting in so long that while Poe was at Casitas, we didn't have any meetings.
So I would support you staying.
And I thank you for that recommendation. And I would suggest that if there is a vote that is of consequence and cross interest, and we do have the right to recluse ourselves from that vote. And if the committee decides that we should recluse ourselves from that vote, then we shall.
Yeah, we're not giving you a raise.
Damn, that was next on the agenda.
There goes our next few slides.
Okay, so Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, we spent some conversation.
Yeah, they're not present here right now, right? No. I'll reach
Yeah,
out
so
to
the
them.
new director is Tom Maloney. I just emailed you his contact information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And he's just getting, his feet on the ground.
Okay.
And I suspect that they'll be happy to participate once they sort of get their
Yeah, I think so.
dust settled.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them.
Okay, and now I believe that Ventura Hillsides Conservancy has had a name change, and now they're the Ventura Land Trust. And so that's a fairly simple, straightforward edit. However, we want to make sure the leadership committee is aware that the name is simply changed, but the organization itself is intact.
For your alternate?
So Derek is going to be.
Derek?
alternate,
Okay.
And I'm going to be a primary, Jessica is part of the organization.
Okay, thank you.
Environmental. Oh, Surfrider.
Yeah, we can keep it at that.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Town papers.
I'm here, and just go with Molly Troop, TROUP.
How do you spell that last one? I'm sorry.
TROUP.
Thank you.
Ohio Valley Green,
Not present.
present.
Are they usually fun?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll reach out to them, see if there is a scheduling conflict and make sure that everything's okay. Thank you for that feedback. Friends of the Ventura River,
It can stay the same.
Thank you.
Jody, Farm Bureau,
Can stay the same.
Emily,
I would like to nominate Mike Sullivan to be the primary. For, other essays on management. Previously, attorney, longer than I am.
Desi, Emily.
East End waterways. And, it's a great community and, works for lots of farmers in the area.
Has he been to our meetings before?
Yeah,
I think
Mhm.
that sounds right, yeah.
I run into him at a lot of meetings.
He's
And
a
I've
good
worked-
person and wants to be involved, so I don't think a lot of meetings, all of them. And Lisa Renaissance.
All right. Thank you.
And to one of your later points, Emily, we are going to try to get back to having several evening meetings so that people can attend. And our first one actually is probably scheduled for, is it February?
Yeah, February, mid-February evening.
Area energy.
Good.
CoLab.
So, I'm going to change Rachel to, Lisa Palladio. She is actually taking over the secretary position. She's really happy with. And I'm going to be working more with the foundation. We also have a separate organization, it's a foundation, charitable foundation. So if you wouldn't mind putting a slash, CoLab slash foundation there, that would be great. Get the reason.
You're the alternate? Or she's the
So I
alternate?
would be the
Primary.
Primary, it should be.
primary representative.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the same Louise that was on, as her,
Yes. she is doing CoLab.
All right. Great.
Yes.
So I'll be sending this around in the next day or so, just for everyone to confirm about the modifications we've made. So just keep an eye out for that email coming real soon, guys. Thank you.
You know, the water and sanitary Julie O'Rand. She's not gonna see it.
I'm not sure that we prefer a
No, she's
time.
not.
Okay. Okay.
she, right, well, Kelly Dyer, the new assistant general manager, is gonna be involved with Julia is, she's the chief engineer.
engineer,
Right.
Yeah. And Julia was active with the steering committee for the latest I heard.
She's a.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okie dokie. So the table below the leadership committee is the leadership executive committee. And so the leadership executive committee is just a subgroup of the leadership committee. And so just to make sure that that's all set as well as we can, we need to go through the membership there as well. So Arn, you're good with the primary. Okay, and alternate? Okay. Government. We have you, Jennifer, as a Susan. Here we are, water and sanitary.
Brian?
Brian. these changes are all good. Remember now, this is conversation we're having, so all these changes are good.
Well, alternate, like, have someone on there as well?
Absolutely.
For the, yeah, since we also have Kelly on there as well.
For an alternate.
So alternate in water sanitation.
No, both, yeah.
Sounds good.
Very good. Okay. So land management recreation.
For land trust,
Yeah, I would like to recommend. I don't know if Jill would prefer to be the primary, or just her availability is with them, so.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to have representation from Ohio Valley and from Ventura Trust.
I mean, that's a good point. These executive leadership positions don't have to be the same
Mhm.
organization.
Mhm.
And maybe there's an advantage to having it be a different organization.
I agree.
So for water and sanitary, I mean, for all the categories, you might want to consider, it doesn't have to be the same two people that are.
Mhm.
I think that what we want to do is make sure that we get our contact list for the leadership committee and the leadership executive committee nailed down so that we can just have that conduit for conversation. And then as we move forward, we can tweak it, of course. So let's consider that moving forward. So we're clear on the land management recreation then?
Yep.
Okay.
So yours are primary.
Yep.
Environmental, Paul, Ben?
I'm not past.
You're really great.
yeah, no, I know, because you guys are actually co-representatives, we do that. I think you guys were that's why you might be bold.
I probably just got font happy. Anyways, that's fine. It may actually have been those who got back to us at some point in time about a question. Business owner, so. Jody?
Yeah, I'm fine with staying on as a primary, but this also might be a good opportunity to swap our different organizations alternate, because John's availability is.
So within the business and landowner sector, we have Emily, Area Energy, Collab. Would someone like to step into that alternate position?
You know, he was very willing to be part of this organization, so let's.
Okay.
So he would be the alternate?
Yeah.
And so in that case, you know, it'd simply be, if Jody can't take on that role, there would be that conversation. And it's good because it just means that there are more conversations going on outside of the meetings.
Just another point, just what has been happening, not that it should be this way, the executive leadership committee's been meeting more often. We like to get together because it's usually a funding discussion or a work plan or something that required, like last December, we got together when Chloe was going to be stepping down and we needed to figure out. So we didn't convene, the whole leadership committee wasn't convened. It hasn't been convened for a while. So might also be wanting to look at the charter and see, you know, perhaps this group should be meeting more often and the leadership. So if you're on here both times, you might, through past practice, you might be going to more leadership, executive leadership committee meetings. So it's just a kind of a governance question about what group is doing what and how often they convene. So.
And absolutely, and again, this is an evolution. There are iterations of who's had a coordinator position, and we're new to that position. And so now is, again, a good time to have a conversation about how the charter might need to be revised or what our governance structure may need to evolve to be able to address, you know, the current temperature and desires of the existing leadership committee. So please do review that charter because it is an important document. We refer to it all the time when it comes to having these issues. Okay.
We do have a plan.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have Lynn here as, oh no, Lauren would be the one who serves as executive as a general member. Okay. Sorry about Okay, so we have addressed that. Now, where are we? in terms of-
We do have a break scheduled, but are you guys okay going through this work plan right now? I imagine we just sat down.
Actually, point of order, it looks like we've gone through number 5 on the agenda, kind of scheduled number 2 text updates, and there was an update I wanted to
Oh,
share
yes.
for anybody who speaks out early.
My apologies. Yes, go ahead.
If I may.
Yes.
Yep.
And that is that last week, the Overland Valley Organics green waste processing facility closed down. A few weeks before that, they had submitted a letter exercising the right to terminate their contract. And that they, I mean, the firm of Santa Clara Valley Organics, which is the Somers family, which is headquartered in Fillmore. They've operated the Ovo facility for 20 years. The county's role is as a landlord. The county owns the Ovo facility. The county also has a CUP on it. Or the applicant has a CUP through the planning division, and there's also a local enforcement agency oversight of any waste processing through the environmental health division. But the site operator is a private for-profit business with a lease through the county, and they exercise their option to terminate that lease by mid-December. And in order to restore the site, they had to close early so that any notice to the county, they closed their doors last week. One of the things we cite, one of the things that Somers cited in his letter was the interest in retiring, and the other one was knowledge that he likely could not meet CUP requirements. The renewal of the CUP, which is intending that any enforcement action be taken for years to renew the CUP out there regarding the issue of measures to contain the spread of the invasive shotwell borer. And, I won't get into the whole long story on that, but the main point in bringing that up is there's a need to reconsider green waste, look at options for green waste management in the Ojai Valley. The county sent out a press release, put signs to the facility. I've sent out a little update on 6 or 8 options for green waste disposal and mulch acquisition, et cetera. But one, the facility is available for lease for anyone to operate it. They can contact the solid waste management division for that. And 2, it's a great time to explore any alternatives. For example, maybe you want to get into the green waste business, or maybe some other rancher or grower wants to accept at least the clean green waste straight from landscapers, shred it and process it. Now, there are various sources of funding. The Ag Commissioner has funding for mitigation of the invasive shotwell borer, but one of the things he's considering is, gee, maybe fund some local nonprofit and buy them a chipper and they chip on site. He's talking to the Fire Safe Council, and tried the RCD. There's a lot of options, so there's a lot of potentially hundreds of thousands of ISHB mitigation funding associated with green waste out there. And there currently is an open window through Calorie Cycle to apply for a green waste management grant. That grant application deadline is December 5th. I've had some conversations with our solid waste management division about, boy, could you throw in an application to say buy a grinder for the Ovo facility. The CUP and the lease and or the lease require that currently the green waste be shipped to ground monthly. I told the planning division that month, very generous monthly requirement for the current operators. There have been detections in 2019 of shotwell borers nearest to and across the river from the Ovo facility, so it's a legitimate concern. And certainly the Ag Commissioner speculating to say the county organization is not ready to throw in the towel and declare defeat on the spread of the shotwell borer at this time. I mean, today, when we have to recognize battle. Anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry about my ignorance. Does OHI, who services like the trash and recycling?
Harrison,
And Harrison does have a,
well, up until 2 years ago, Harrison brought all of their barrel and bin collections to Greenway Studio facility. 2 years ago, they decided to stop doing that and have been bringing it to the Gold Coast Recycling Center. Presumably, it's better deal for us, the Gold Coast Recycling Center. So waste volumes are down by something like 70%.
how to save the shipping down to 5%.
Disposal site for any cell calls or landscapers is right at the same place Harrison does, which is Gold Street and Ventura. So our county staff is in discussions with Agromin, discussions with Peach Hill Organics, discussions with anybody who wants to discuss opening and operating at the Obo site. So, and like I say, I mean, it wasn't an ideal situation anyway, and maybe it's a great opportunity for ranchers, landscapers, profits to get their feet wet in the green waste business, where you can earn income from accepting materials, and you get free mulch, saleable mulch here. So permits may apply. I just want to get that out there.
So I have a question, so the CUP,
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say in order to take it over. There is a CUP, it will effectively terminate on cessation of activities for 180 days. It's another conversation I'm having, trying to get CUP alive, want to get another operator in there. Well, it could well have expired, actually, and be in a holdover renewal phase. An application has been filed by Ventura Valley Organic to extend the CUP. Got tied up in these evolving ISHP protocols, which at one point was to shift to maximum 1 inch in size. There's a state task force, the Waste Board, the UCAG, players on it, the commissioner, looking at standards for green waste processing to minimize invasive insects, and they've relaxed the shipping size from 1 inch to 2 inch, but are recommending, we will have this task force that the shipping occur on every day that fresh green waste is brought in. The monthly plus base, this is not something that currently would be possible for the current operator. So one option instead of other possibilities. They have an active CUP application for a very high-end region-wide green waste processing facility on the Lyman era property. They have an interest in operating in Ojai Valley Organics in the interim or satellite. Discussions are occurring. Well, they keep changing their project description. They double their size twice, amongst other things. Basically sets you back to one of the super process. The waste board hasn't made their life easy either. Cycle. Anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly, Steve, thanks. You know, I got an email about this and I emailed you and you must have been inundated with email, so I apologize for overloading you on that. And
What we're there for, yeah.
I appreciate your work on this. You know, the first thing that occurred to me is, you know, I've been seeing a real need to make mulching easier and more accessible throughout the valley. When you look at ET values of evaporation from the soil is, you know, a huge portion of that. And I've seen that on my own property that the mulching would really greatly reduce water use. And so it's a primary strategy, I think, in terms of water conservation, watershed wide. And I know that a lot of agricultural operations are, really ramping that up. And I've always seen a real business opportunity. If somebody could actually deliver and spread mulch on property, maybe that would be a part of the business model that not only processing it in ways, but delivering and spreading.
I'll
Yeah.
speak to it as a farmer, we don't like fresh waste from outside sources, even if it's 2 blocks away, because of the, not only the shovel water, but the invasive facility, you don't want to take in anything that might have citrus somewhere else to do with this. And we do love putting out mulch, and we've worked with RCD for going back 25, 30 years with grants. The cost of doing it is exorbitant in the Ohio Valley just because of labor and tractor time. And the Ohio Valley Organics mulch has always been too expensive for farmers. That's very small and no money on the ground. So we've always taken Santa Barbara, LA County mulch. And there's a big bunch. People signed up with RCD for grants over the next couple of years to put out mulch. There's enough available mulch that's cheap enough to get. And the other hang up being getting mulch from outside and could be breeding and stuff, so it's really small. And we can't take semi-truckloads in the Ohio Valley because they can't turn around. So it's smaller, which makes it more expensive. So can't take it. So there's lots of issues from a farm. I mean, I would love to take everybody's mulch outside, but then I would have slew invasive pests in a small area. So if there's one way we can get it, I mean, we would take all of the mulch we can get and the system going. But the cost of the 1-inch chipper, I've heard, is $1 million or $300,000.
Well, we're down to, we're back to the 2-inch size, which can be done by the grinder that the contract grinder had.
But you have to prove to the growers that they're not going to get shovel for it.
Yeah, I got tough issue. Very tough issue.
You want to really want the tree side.
Right. We're the changing planet, and things that used to be easy, simple, cheap, convenient, plentiful, along the line.
And just because of the cost of living and all that, it's never been cost effective.
You know, for my immediate local neighborhood, I'm seeing more and more homes moving their yards. So maybe where growers couldn't take it, the homeowners might.
Perhaps the other organization has is approved, and they help doing a lot of site fire mitigation and also renewable.
They're part of the conversation.
I will say, however, in speaking with various members of the community, there is some concern about mulch presenting fire danger. So there is actually some pushback against the use of mulch as well in landscape. So there are, to Emily's point, there are a lot of moving parts to the whole story.
Is there any, I mean, we don't need to go any further into this because it's a long conversation, but in the in-stream flow study that you guys are going to be overseeing, are any of the pilot projects kind of mulch related? Yeah, there will be demonstration of mulch as a practice. So that's a simple just demo. And the goal really is to just sort of quantify what we all know, which is the benefits to it in terms of returning water to in-stream flows. So,
yeah, all I can say is that, private, residential property owners, it's extremely hard to get mulch and get it spread on the property. It is expensive. It's a lot of labor. I'm too old and weak to do more of that mistakes. You start losing 10 or 20 yards of ball. It's a big project. And I wish there was a way to streamline that, make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, my neighbor 2 doors down has this organic vineyard, and it's compacted dirt that he hires leaf blowers to come by and blow the dust over onto my property once a week.
It's good. It's good to be consistent.
Yeah.
Certified it incorporated in their friendly gardening program.
Oh, it's absolutely the fundamentals of ocean-friendly gardens. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's grant money to facilitate, I mean, it could be an interesting.
Well, the thing with surf riders with volunteers, it's a huge project just to get volunteers out and do a single landscape.
The primary limitation I see, sorry to interrupt, is that it's labor. That's where the cost is. And so how to defray that with a grant? Well, but yeah, that's sort of the
Oh, that's why, never mind. I'm going back to the 1700s.
Yeah.
Get horses to do it?
All right, so any further updates? I apologize about skipping over that in the agenda. We've heard from this side of the room about on this.
Yeah, just thinking about it, it's kind of a non-profit, really recall.
Yeah.
Business, 7% of materials heading out of terrain, and there's much incentive to do a non-profit.
The only way to go.
So, question regarding the schedule of meetings, are you going to wait till the very last item to talk about how often this group should meet and get a schedule, or do you want to do it? I'm just wondering if you're going to have everybody here for the whole discussion.
Well, we certainly can bring that up. The agenda is sort of just laid out the way it is, but it's kind of random in that sense. So if we feel as though we need to discuss the recurrence of the meetings for the leadership committee, we can do it now. Open to that.
I think we've kind of had an annual review. It's kind of the way we've been doing it.
You mean, this group hasn't met, and we couldn't find a record of the last meeting. Like 4 or 5 years since this group met.
Oh.
The executive leadership committee meets.
Oh, I see. Okay, so executive, because I mean, I guess the executive leadership committee was meeting regarding all of these transitions.
And it was tidier because there was only half a dozen
Yeah.
people that needed to attend.
Yeah, and weren't there sometimes executive meetings before the general meeting?
Generally, I would say that would make sense because, again, any action taken by this group has to be reviewed by the general membership before it can be voted on. So I would suggest that they would be following soon, before like this needs to happen now so that we can get this table revised. The general membership will then be given notice about that, and then 7 days later we can adopt.
That's the only real reason to me is if there's some action item that needs to be discussed and voted on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And for me, again, it's about having that dialogue just to make sure that we all have a chance to express whatever our views are on any particular position as a group. So that, there's a course correction for us so that we can address whatever the needs are of the leadership committee beyond just the executive leadership committee, which is good, but might not have the opportunity to fully express whatever the views are. Emily.
Mike Sullivan's good with being the primary on the.
Thank you. Right, thank you.
Thank you. So to circle back, then Lynn's suggestion was that we come up with a sort of a plan for how often we should be meeting as the leadership committee. And then there's some discussion, well, do we need to meet very often? And what would that be? We were considering having another leadership committee meeting because we're covering some of the bases here, but there's more conversations that we probably should be having about other topics. I think, when was that?
In March, sometime early next year, we're thinking about doing another one to kind of go over the direction and how we want the community to be doing moving forward. And like Jamie said, discuss less nuts and bolts and more the future of the council in general, which we'll have some time to discuss today, but not ample time that we're wanting to actually look into it and hear everyone's opinions and for everyone to prep with that moving forward.
In our view anyways. And certainly, if
Yeah,
there's reconsideration of that, then we can shuffle things.
So when I heard there was a December 5th meeting, that's the general membership.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you wanted to do anything executive, you could make the first half hour executive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's certainly a possibility. And that's why we're having this conversation, sort of see how that structure would work best for everyone to make the most sense. Again, as a coordinator, just want to make sure that, we're able to listen to whatever anyone has to say. Jody?
So I was thinking, I think we'll kind of have a conversation about the distinct roles of the leadership committee versus the executive.
From my perspective, I think the fundamental difference is that the executive committee has skin in the game. These are the funding agencies. So it's people who have a management role in the funding agencies and really are in a position to more or less commit to funding the organization or discussing the levels at which their organization is funded. Financial negotiation with the members of the executive.
That's sensible. The only thing I would add to that is actually everybody here as part of the leadership committee are paying dues. So it's beyond just the smaller subset of the leadership executive committee. Everyone who has the role of the leadership committee is a due paying member in that sort of where the vote comes from. And I'll go ahead and say that there are some members on the leadership committee who haven't paid their dues for the 2019-2020 work year. So that's a conversation that needs to happen because this position, of course, is funded by the leadership committee. And so if the leadership committee isn't paying their dues, that means that our time is either being donated or there needs to be a reduction in the hours that we're committing.
Who sent that notice invoice out? Was that done recently or was that done before you guys came on board?
I didn't send any notice out, so
I think that's part of the problem or a challenge is that the county was managing all the financial stuff when Zoe was the coordinator. And then when she stepped away, and even after she went to work at Dudek, for a while, there was overlap. The county still did it. Then when Casitas took it on, there was quite a bit of back and forth about where the funding was. And then Brian and the Ohio Valley Land Conservancy temporarily took over a lot of the duties. So it shifted, and now it's you guys. So, it's almost like start over with, okay, get the budget out to everybody. And now all the checks are supposed to be coming to you, and there shouldn't be any more residual. The county transferring the money to Casitas to Ohio Valley Land Conservancy and then to you, because it was a rigmarole of, Arnie and I were both a little bit involved in all of that. And so it's almost like, I think it's time to start fresh, send out, and then the budget, I don't recall if the executive leadership committee or this group, since it hasn't met in a long time, has actually looked at the budget. How much is the annual cost? What does that get you? This work plan, is it on the agenda to talk about the budget? Are you going to talk about that?
Within the work plan, I was imagining.
Part of the work plan, okay.
And absolutely, there needs to be, a conversation about, okay, well, yeah, sure, I'm paying dues, but what am I paying for? What am I getting from that? And so that's all part of it. It's not really about the money. It is, of course, about that, but this is a funded position. Everybody has expectations about what we should be delivering. We want to make sure that we're clear about that so we can deliver. And again, we need a strong watershed council. And the only way we can have that is to make sure everybody's needs are being met. Because if there's residual resentment or whatever, whether it's based on the way that the budget is structured and who's paying what, or whether everyone's paying what they're expected to be paying, we need to have that conversation. All right, so as far as
Right, we need to look at that allocation. The world has changed, especially in OBGMA's, we've got a groundwater sustainability plan, so a lot of money's got to be put out for that. I think at the time, the commitment was made for OBGMA's funding for this organization, was when they didn't have a lot of financial commitment. Now, things are a lot tighter than they used to be. So we need to have a conversation. Is our appropriate allocations, is our allocation still appropriate? Consider the size variance in our budget, should others step it up?
And I'm going to apologize. We weren't involved in any of those conversations before, and just to make that statement, yeah, exactly. And so it's just time that things be reconsidered or thought through.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that we had a very, I thought, really comprehensive conversation back in December with the Executive Leadership Committee, and some of you were at that meeting where we talked about what is it that this council wants to do, and it was sort of, they were having a discussion that needs to be had by a broader group like this group or even the full membership. Because I think in the end, and we had a little brainstorming session, and I don't know if at some point you can pull this up, we decided to actually do a facilitated brainstorming, and we came up with some ideas. And as we were thinking big, we said short term, we wanted to see, get through the Prop 1 process and kind of get over the hump with finding the new coordinators. And then longer term, I think we talked about, we would like 2 full-time people. And that was like dreaming.
Yeah.
And, not sure that that's doable, but I guess the fact is we don't want to, this was not shared out. As far as I know,
We have it to talk.
this hasn't been talked about by anybody but the Executive Leadership Committee. And I don't want to see that exercise sort of wasted, because there was a lot of really good input on what is the council doing. So before deciding how much money do we want to raise, well, in the interim, you need money, but in the longer term, it's like, is the council, with all the things happening with groundwater sustainability agencies, with the WCB grant for in-stream flow, with ongoing IRWM activities, with everything else we want to do, what do we want the council to do? And, you guys don't have as much money as the other watersheds to raise to do this function, but it's kind of a reevaluating how important is the council and what sources of income, such as possibly bits of the WCB grant, could be used to get us to where we want to be, which was pretty unanimous, 2 people. I don't know how you're going to get there, but I think.
Well, I think that was part of the suggestion, is that if the council or RCD were pursuing grants to do projects such as the in-stream flow, which is relevant because that covers a variety of stakeholders and issues, that there's some sort of admin overhead that goes into the watershed coordinator, which is part of the coordination for that grant itself. And so that's actually a good example and a good reason why, RCD is taking a leadership role for this.
And to be clear, there's about 7,000. So that grant is 1.8 million. So
it's only 7,000.
Yeah.
Right. So that wasn't very well written.
Well, at the time, earlier on, it was talked about being more than that, like closer to 30,000. So.
And it's just, like everything, it all evolves. Language all evolves. So I want to go ahead and give everybody a chance to sort of mull this over, use the restroom, sort of get together. And let's meet back here at 10:20 so we can continue on with the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So one of the things that you realize is that when you send out the charter and work plan, we're getting the budget.
Yeah, so
So I want to make sure people are clear that we're only.
yeah, so that's, I was actually going to say that's great right now, so we can talk about this. I think we should pull up the budget from our files right now.
I loaded it on.
Oh, you
Well,
did? Okay,
I
okay.
have a.
So I was thinking that we should go through the work plan real quick first. and
Yeah,
then
well, I mean,
go into the budget right after.
So this is,
I guess, yeah, we're gonna have to talk to them, and tell them that it's just not gonna, now, oh wait, no, we have a cleaner version of it too. I saw it.
well, this one, it's with,
No, there's no such thing as a voluntary
what we're currently doing.
I mean, as far
Oh,
as.
this is, okay, you modified this to show.
No, this was just a version of the Ventura River Watershed Council budget
about water conservation.
that was more clear.
Mhm.
However, there's another version. This laptop doesn't have that VPN.
I have, okay, let me look right here. I know it's in here somewhere. Okay, where is it? It's probably in proposal, right? Right, there's a PDF of it, I'm pretty sure.
First step. I can say that for a decade. And there's no interest.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
I know it's here somewhere. Consider support.
Yeah.
Budget, no, that's the one you opened up.
But it feels like that should be brought in.
Well, it's a good framework,
Yeah.
but certain
Is it at the end of our work plan?
No, it's not in,
So,
the work plan is just in here.
I mean, there's that, that's why I said, it's like.
Where is this budget?
And so that's part of the confusion. That budget itself is a separate document on the work
There's
plan.
no,
So when we send out the
no
work
job
plan,
description.
all they can do is read some swarmy description about nothing.
Yeah.
The work plan itself, it doesn't articulate really what our.
Just the dilemma is, you know.
Was it Deborah who sent this up? Remember we were talking to Deborah about it a few weeks ago.
No, about the
budget. Yeah, no, about this budget. We were talking to Deborah and then she was asking, or Coyote Screen, she's like, where'd you get it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, it should be in there.
The only time any of that water going.
Ventura coordinated work plan. Well, we can just PDF this one in, right? I mean, just for the sake of time.
I mean, I have it. So.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that, and that's, you know, it's just a question, what should do. See it as a
Yeah, you know what, Jamie? It was just that table PDF.
strategy.
I mean, every time we have a discussion about whether we should be.
Yeah.
it'd be a good time to conclude our conversation and take a seat.
Did you send this out?
I hope so.
The work plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I did. It was a second email, I believe,
However,
the follow-up.
an oversight on my part, I apologize, did not
Are you on
send
the
the attendant budget.
MailChimp list? Okay.
What's that?
Did not send the attendant budget. So this is the watershed coordinator proposed work plan. This was the work plan that was provided to the Leadership Executive Committee back to begin the 2019-2020 work plan and work plan year. This is still in force, however, it was never adopted. So the point of today is to adopt the existing work plan that we're currently operating under. And then with the clarity that comes with the leadership committee members, and then also conversations we have about what to do about dues and all that stuff, which will set the budget, then we can have the conversation about what hours and what tasks will happen in the 2020-2021 work plan. Does that seem sensible? So hopefully everyone has had a chance to see the work plan that was proposed again for the 2019-2020 year. And the only thing I want to add on to that is in addition to this, which is not really legible, but I want to make sure, because it wasn't provided, to give you an opportunity to review this budget that goes along with that work plan. Okay. And so I apologize again that it's in small font, but the tasks on the left-hand side, you'll see council meetings, other meetings, website data, maintenance, e-newsletter, correspondence, and then, apologies, and IRWM, Watershed Coalition of Ventura County Administration. Okay, for 12 hours per week. So we've taken on this position and it's for 12 hours a week. And it is at a rate of, I believe, 40 something.
Yeah, I think 35 to 40.
Yeah, $40.06. And the only thing I'm trying to say here is that this is how many hours that were allocated according to the budget, and that's what we've been adhering to. Okay. So the scope of work that was provided really just gave a basic narrative about what we had hoped to do and accomplish, et cetera, and this is how we've sort of gone about doing that. So you'll see that council meetings, so planning in advance, apologize about this. Yeah, sorry. Speaker invitation arrangements, setting up and coordinating, just traditional coordination. So we are allocated 2 hours per week for that. Other meetings includes meeting with additional stakeholders beyond this particular meeting and this group. And that would be at the behest of the leadership committee or the leadership executive committee to discuss watershed council business to other groups. 3 hours for that. This is also meetings outside of this venue to discuss the business that's relevant to the watershed. Well, website data maintenance. So we do have a website, and so we have worked hard to update that, and he's going to give an update on those activities. In addition to sort of making updates, just making sure that it's functioning. In addition to a website, we also have Google Drive, which has been the repository for, I apologize, I've got something on that. Been a repository for all council business going back to the creation of the council. And so there is a wealth of information on there. And as you also might imagine with the changes that have happened with this position, a lot of that updating and a lot of that routine maintenance just hadn't been done. And so there was a lot of effort that needed to bring things up into our current state of readiness.
Shandy, is there any way you can enlarge that a little bit?
I can.
That'd be great.
Okay. I'm not sure
Much better.
at
Thank
what
you.
stage.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that better?
I mean, I know then you can't see the whole thing at once, but,
So we'll scroll through it.
Yeah.
but at least we can read the
That's
text.
perfect. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's good. Thanks, Mike. So e-newsletter, we have sent out an e-newsletter.
We sent one out about a month ago. We're sending another one out in December.
Okay. And again, as I said at the meeting before this one, make sure that you are providing us updated contact information. That is how we reach out to everyone. If you are not providing us updated contact information, then we simply can't provide you these services that you are expecting from us. And also I would point out that the e-newsletter is a result of not just our action, it's a result of the leadership committee and the general membership to let us know what they want to put in that newsletter for the benefit of the rest of the watershed. Correspondences, so please be aware that if you need a support letter for projects, we provide that. So, and any correspondence that needs to be taken on behalf of the council, that is our responsibility, that is our job. So just make sure that you're aware of that responsibility and that we can accommodate those requests. Administrative, again, coordinator invoicing, so invoicing council for our activities, going to the leadership committee groups and saying, hey, it's, here's the invoices for our activities. And following up with everybody. Sorry.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How does that work?
You provide us background on that project so we can understand that project. And then we draft up the letter. We usually let you look at it to see if it fits what you need. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Well, and who makes the decision whether or not to
Support it.
the project? You guys?
Yeah, at this stage with us, but certainly probably should be something that either the leadership committee does or the executive leadership committee do.
Yeah, that's what they do in the Santa Clara River is they run it by the co-chairs.
Okay.
To make sure that there's support, because there could be a letter that somebody requests that isn't really reflective of everybody's interests, or they might not want to support it. In which case, I mean, there should be maybe some rules about that if there aren't already, about when something is not considered widely supported by the group, then maybe a letter doesn't get written.
Yeah, so for instance, the Mitchell Dam project has already been endorsed by the Watershed Council, and thank you for your letters. You keep applying for grants on the Soha. We've been very successful, so I think that's legit. But what you're saying, some random group comes up with some random project,
Or either one of us.
yeah, maybe it needs vetting.
Yeah, and those rules of engagement do need to be codified, absolutely. It's our responsibility to follow through with these things. But if the charter doesn't have a rule of engagement codified, then there's no guidance. So, and this is a conversation, again, that needs to happen because those things need to be considered and then put in the charter. Because it's not just about us, right? It's about, that charter is a guiding document for this council and whoever takes over the coordination of this council. So
I guess the other example of that was, in fact, this in flow grant that was never presented to the council or to the watershed coordinator, and at the last minute there was a request for support letters. And I think we balked on that because it hadn't had a chance to be vetted. So
They brought it to the group. Well, they didn't bring it to the whole group. They came to Poe and to me and said, please review this. And it's Labor Day weekend and we need you to review 400 pages in 4 days or something. I mean, it was like not, plus it hadn't come to this group. So there was a lot of pushback. Not that it isn't a great thing to be reviewing as a group, it just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
We didn't have the time.
And what was that? I didn't.
the Ventura River is being flow project.
Oh.
I mean, it's really important work,
Right.
but it was hard on some, I think some of the members of the groups that I can't
Yeah,
jump in
absolutely.
and support with it. I don't know what I'm supporting.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's the whole point. There does need to be rules of engagement, so that there isn't some swarmy explanation as to why or why not. It's right there.
And in the rules, we also like, be looking at things that the Watershed Council might want to propose. So not only support letters, but letters opposing something. And my question is, you said at the beginning, what your title is with the county?
I'm not looking.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Ventura County.
My job title is district scientist.
Okay. Okay, so you're not.
Resource Conservation District.
Yeah, we have Ventura County in the name, so
Yeah.
it's commonly
Oh,
assumed that
okay.
we're part of the county. But that's more of just a description of our general boundary
Because when we did,
in our role.
when we did the plan for the watershed, you know, we incorporated things, and one of the elements was recreational element under there. And, you know, land use around the Ventura River. It would be really nice if when a project comes up that is really kind of in the face of river restoration, that the Watershed Council could at least make, if it's just minimal, a comment that this might not be in keeping with the long-term environmental restoration goals of the Ventura River. I would just think that could be very helpful.
Might not be, or might be?
Might be very helpful.
Might be, yeah.
And so one of the things that, you know, what we need to decide is if we're going to update that, those rules of engagement, you know, they would be reflecting the charter. And then also, again, as part of just revitalization of the council's website, you know, so that information is there. People, and we do get a lot of traffic. I won't still hand this thunder. But all this is very important for a number of reasons. So thank you for the question. And so, where are we? Going to sleep. Okay, integrated regional water management, working in coordination with the Watershed Coalition of Ventura County. So we were as engaged as we could be with the integrated regional water management process, as were many of you. And so we are involved in the updating and working with Lynn and the rest of the IRWM groups to try to facilitate those. And so that is sort of coming to an end, but even as recently as, what was it, yesterday, we were involved in a meeting to discuss the IRWM process.
Well, and when you say coming to an end, we went through the round of funding. So we had, in October, we did a call for projects. We added a bunch of projects to the plan. The plan is at the state for review, but then selecting projects for the first round of funding was the big flurry. And that's over for now.
For now.
Until the next round of funding.
Exactly.
But the whole IRWM process and the actual public review of the plan is still upcoming. So
yeah. So there's
still a lot to be engaged in.
Exactly. And then also there's been conversations that the Watershed Coalition would have more frequent meetings with the watershed coordinators, just so we can sort of communicate a little bit more fluidly, keep up abreast of developments. Then administrative, so, you know, just keeping track of our time and making sure that our assistant director or executive director, I'm sorry, apologies, has an opportunity to reach out to everybody in timely fashion and submit the invoices and all that, and updating all of the contact, all that kind of stuff. And so what we come down to is 12 hours per week. And so that's what was agreed to in that work plan to accomplish all the tasks. And so, again, all I'm doing at this moment is just presenting the budget that's reflected in the tasks. That's part of the work plan for the 2019-2020 year. And we're, again, already working in that year. And so we just need to adopt that. So I make a motion that we adopt the 2019-2020. So moved. Okay, do we have, okay. Lynn, you second? Oh, I'm still voting better, right? Okay, perfect.
Any objections?
Any objections?
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Can I make a point too about the 12 hours, which is very minimal?
Yeah.
I mean, to get all that done. There's other things we've talked about at that meeting in December, but also have discussed over the years. We now have a watershed management plan that is almost 5 years old, and there's a lot in that plan. And those of you that worked on it know how incredibly rich with information and recommended actions that plan is. And the question being, do we look at that plan again? Is there a need to bring it up to date? We could certainly update the section with the projects in it to repost. And the question is, who's going to pay for that? Because you can't do that with 12 hours a week. So looking at possible grants, and you have Lexi working on grant writing for some things, right?
Yes.
Here and there,
Here
touch
and there.
bases, yeah.
So, I
As
mean,
we
grant
need
writing, I forgot if grant writing was in that list, was it?
No, we don't. Going off of Lynn's point about the hours, for us to kind of efficiently deliver for funding opportunities and outreach to make the group more robust is a very good point. That 12 hours is a very minimal amount of hours to put in. And as Jamie said earlier, anything above that, we've been donating. So there's some thought into when we start writing the next work plan into increasing those hours. We probably think it's more around 18, 20 hours a week to kind of deliver on what we believe the council wants moving forward, and being able to attend and create a presence within the watershed and become as robust as we want the group to be. So there's just some food for thought for thinking about increasing those hours in the upcoming work plan.
Is the watershed management plan, is it on the website?
It should be.
Oh, yeah.
It should be. And
Yeah.
if there are issues, then please let us know.
In
Yeah.
section.
I'm not sure
Yeah, I
why
think I
it
saw
is
it.
that needs to be updated. I mean, a lot of plans go for 20 years
Right.
before they need to be updated. So that might not be something you guys have to deal with.
You
in
don't have to
all phases,
rewrite the whole
but you
thing.
should
Yeah.
look at the plan because a lot of time is put into it.
Yeah.
A lot of time.
Well, I think
Well, we reference it quite often. So going back to, sorry to interrupt, when we are writing support letters, we do reference that that's supported by the watershed
Mhm.
management plan.
you have to remember that a fundamental objective of the watershed plan was to maintain our independence from state water.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do we want to rewrite it?
Yeah.
But the point being is that we should all be familiar with what's articulated in that plan.
Well, there could be, I suppose, at meetings, you could take a section of the plan, like the project section, which is now a little out of date because it's been 5 years. I mean, that's the implementation arm, along with the campaigns that were established to do memorandum removal. And there were, I think, 4 campaign groups that were formed. Some of them have met, some of them haven't, but the action items maybe need to be relooked at, and that could come before this group for conversation about, what do we want to change? Is there anything we want to change in that?
Question is, should the project section be in the plan? Or should there be something separate?
Living
So not
document.
an update, but
An
then
appendix,
time
yeah.
you change a project, which is in the other plan. Depending on funding.
Yeah. Should be an appendix. We did that with the IRWM plan. The actual projects are an appendix. And you can just make an update to that whenever you need to.
I would make a motion that we do not update the plan in the year 2020.
That we do not?
Well, and that kind of makes sense since the county general plan
Yeah.
is getting updated, so it might be smart to let that plan settle in before we do that.
And to that point, settling in, I mean, this is just a conversation we're having about the budget and everything. We're still settling into our role. You are still settling into your role with us as a coordinator. So, this is all just, an evolution. Any other comments?
Well, I see that the funding partner contribution commitments are an element of the work plan we just adopted. The work had discussed some potential modifications of that.
I think we give some agencies guidance, if their contribution is appropriate, instead of back of the napkin calculation of our contribution versus Casitas. And Casitas is doing 6,000, we're doing 500. comparing our total budgets to each other, ours could go up to $750, in proportion to what another agency is doing. And so maybe if we just had some guidance to people, maybe we see if we're all giving in proportion, except for the conservancy, the certifier, that's good. But for an agency doing a job in the valley, be kind of proportional.
I appreciate that comment. I mean, there's board of directors for the organizations that have to be, this has to pass through them, and so there needs to be some kind of supporting narrative for what that number is. I appreciate that, and I certainly don't know what what the calculus is going into that. So that would be my presumption. The leadership executive committee
that makes a
addresses
decision
that.
for funding.
I'm looking at you, because I don't know where those numbers came from, and the process to go through to revise them or to come up with a formula.
And that's part of our issue. I want to pay you guys, but I think our designated contributions certainly way out of proportion related to our ability to pay.
You're 1,300?
Huh?
Is it 1,300?
1,300, and we've got $146,000. We're trying to do a groundwater sustainability plan.
So maybe that gets shared with the Upper Ventura River GSA, which is like some of the same people, but yeah.
I misread. I thought Casitas was contributing $6,000, but they're only contributing $1,300. So we would decrease our $525.
Yeah.
I think that maybe some proportionality. Guidance. Help with the elected officials.
Oh, and I agree with that too. We're seeking clarity and guidance as well. That would make sense to some degree. Yeah.
Well, and we were on a free ride for a long time because we were getting most of the funding from that grant, and so Lorraine was grant writing and bringing in additional grants, and so we were very flush for those 3.5 4 years. And there was a long conversation when that grant ended as to what level of effort the stakeholders wanted to sustain. And I guess the question is, do you want to revisit that? What is the value of the council and what are you willing to pay? And don't necessarily need to go back to the way it was set up as soon as the rain left. It could be something new, but it's probably a good idea to have a formula with WCBC funding that I'm operating under. There is a formula. So, based on just your size, there were like 4 factors, and it was fairly complicated, but one of the engineers, John Correa from the Ventura District, came up with that. And we all went, okay, it's complicated, but once you set it, it was there. And then, if we wanted to scale it back because we had grant money, then we would just cut it back by a percentage total. So you might want to just start over figuring out what's reasonable.
Yeah.
And is it fiscal year now?
Pretty much is, yeah, because it terminates the end of June.
Yeah.
So what we would be looking at is trying to, codify who's on the leadership committee, assuming that we're still sticking with everyone on the leadership committee or paying dues, and then establish what those dues are, so that we then have the opportunity prior to the start of the new fiscal year in 2020, 2021, to figure out what is the budget. And so therefore, how are the hours going to be allocated for that work plan for that 2020, 2021 year? So that's why these conversations are happening now. And again, obviously we're in the watershed coordinator position currently, but ultimately this exercise is going to be absolutely important no matter who's in this position. So that's the need that we've identified. So we are now approaching the review of the Ventura River Watershed Council website, and so I'm going to hand it to my colleague Andy. However you like to move to.
Yeah, have many people had the chance to review the website? I'll jump up at once. So I guess we'll do this.
I have.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll just do a quick run through with everyone while they're here for a few minutes to show you what the site is. It is still getting updated. It's relatively up to date now. We do post meeting minutes, agendas, presentations within the week after the meeting. So just give us a few days. Everything should be on there, and then we post upcoming meetings too. So we did change the format of the actual website since you guys might have last seen it. It was a little bit different. So let me go to that real quick here. And we're looking for ideas, thought processes, any room for improvement for this. One big thing is the news section on the website that continually is getting cycled through. We're looking for input from you guys for that too. What do you want? Because we get a lot of viewership. I don't have the number in front of me, but we get a lot of people coming through this website. I believe we do track it, and I mean, we get requests, just like general inquiries about the watershed, if we can provide documents and stuff. So we do get a lot of interest in this thing. So it is important website. Ventura Watershed.
Oh, very different look.
Yeah, totally different. So this is your landing page. As we go through, you can obviously join the newsletter, hit the upcoming meetings here. You scroll through, we have a little blurb about the Ventura River. Just a little description about it and everything, where it is. Let's see, keep going through here. And this is that news section that I'm going to update more. It's definitely out of date, but I'm looking towards your guys' kind of expertise or what you, since you guys are paying dues, right? What do you want to be acknowledged and noteworthy for us and for the people coming to this site? Like I said, a lot of viewership. So your thing will be seen if you send us an email. It will be seen here, I promise you, by a few dozen. And I mean, you can put so much stuff in here. I mean, obviously it's pretty old. You look at some of these things, but scrolling back down, so then we get to our contact. So we'll go through here. We have the About Us, we have the updated charter here, everything about that. Profiles, which I will be updating after today's meeting and everything. And then our staff's updated. So then we move on to current watershed projects. I don't believe something's in here. So yeah, this is also something that we're looking for your guys, what you're doing in the watershed. What do you think is noteworthy for a project you're contributing to, your organization? This is a great spot for that, to highlight it. You just send us a quick blurb, maybe a few photos. Really cool to highlight that because people are interested in that.
And certainly for us, we could sort of set the precedent by putting the Ventura River and Stream Flow project in this webpage.
Yeah.
There's an existing Ventura River Parkway map, unfortunately, Paul has stepped out, but it's something that you see on the website. It shows the parkway from the estuary to Fossil Park, and then the reverse side of the map shows it from, I mean, the format is a fold-out map, but we also have it in digital form.
Oh, yeah. If that could be sent over,
yeah,
that would be great. Yeah, yeah. And like, you know, there's a lot of stuff packed in this website that we just haven't even got to, menus within menus within menus.
It's rich, it really is.
So that kind of stuff, there's space for that. Is kind of what I'm getting at. And there's space stuff to remove that we can do. So then we go to our meetings here. We do archive everything on here. This gets updated after each council meeting about upcoming ones. So if you have any questions or anyone else has any questions, this is just a great landing page for people interested in the group. Then we have our past meetings here. This is where you're going to be able to find the meeting minutes, the agenda. Get through here. So as you can tell, our last general council meeting was here. I had a leadership committee tab coming up from what we discussed today and all that good stuff. And this goes down, it definitely goes back, and then we have our archives over here on the right.
Are the red ones links that we can click on?
Yes, they are. And there might be some links in the past that either are broken. Please let us know if that's the case. We go through it and try it, but like you said, we do have a Google Docs, Google Drive that's pretty extensive with the information in it. So links can get broken because stuff does get moved around on there. So if you guys do come across that, let us know. And then,
Yeah, because you know, we're taking on trying to revise and edit and all that, make changes and stuff, but it does go pretty deep, and there have been a lot of changes that have been made in the past, and we're having to sort of undo some of those and revise. So we don't catch all the issues.
Can you archive things so that they're there, but maybe not up front?
yeah, so right here on the right is actually your CR archives. I should probably bring that out a little bit more in the text, but yeah, so you can click on here, go into the month. Let's see, I haven't gone this far back, so. There we go. So yeah, it is archiving, so we do have that capability of it. Now, I haven't gone into the hub recently here, but oh, cool. So, I mean, I guess at this point, showing you guys this kind of stuff, do we have any recommendations? That's what we're looking for right now. Ideas to improve it, or how do you like it? Do you already kind of like the style of it? Do you think it's okay, acceptable? Any kind of thoughts?
Do you have any place on there for member updates? What I was thinking, sitting here, as part of our outreach effort, our groundwater sustainability, it might be nice to be able to give you some dialogue about what OBGMA is doing.
Yeah.
People have an interest, you can point them to the OBGMA website once you get that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think it would be great to have like notes from the council or notes from the membership or what have you, and just a quick blurb so that people can then say, hey, let's, and follow that to the actual. Yeah.
Yeah, and send that to our general email. We check that on a daily, every other day basis. So if you have a quick idea, 2 sentences, shoot it off. We'll follow up with it, and we'll be able to create something that's going to be able to craft it together and put it on there.
I think all members can have something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Interest.
Exactly. And I do beg of you, use the Ventura River Watershed Coordinator email. We don't want to mix up our VC, RCD business with council business, and we don't want it to get that conversation to be lost. So make sure you send it to, and again, we're looking for transparency. So we want to be able to provide membership and the leadership committee an exact accounting of what we're doing. And so we need all that stuff to be sort of easy to find for us as well for that purpose.
So for complete transparency, what email are you telling us? Is it the Ventura Watershed @gmail.com?
Correct.
Yes.
So, okay, that's the one to send.
And I mean, if you send it to our RCD, we're gonna migrate it over, so expect another email. But yeah, please send it to that email.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I just wanted to do, is kind of go over and just show you guys what tools we have to speak to the greater community, because I can't stress enough how many people view this thing. It is a lot of people. Do you have any other ideas, or are you guys okay moving on? If we're okay with style and setup of this.
Where the watershed plan is on the website?
Yeah, let me get into that. That would be a good point. I have to open it myself. Hold on, sorry.
Only in documents.
See that.
Right here. So many submenus in this thing.
And I will point out, I don't know how many, this is on WordPress. This is on, yeah, WordPress. And so this one is a little bit more difficult for a lot of people to be able to work in because of the way that it's just configured. It's not just a, you know, a drag and drop type of website builder. So this takes a little bit more time to actually get through it and a little bit more understanding of it. And the only reason I point that out is because this one has the depth and the capacity that a lot of other basic website builders don't, but you need to understand how it works. So this one can do a lot. And so we can build on capacity and we can build onto stuff. And this is intimately tied to our Google Drive that has all the documents for the council as well. So because of that rich and layered approach to this exercise, again, things get lost or broken. And so if you're coming here and you find something that's not working, just let us know, because otherwise it's tough for us to find. because we don't go actively looking for it.
Do we have a member links page?
No, that's a good question, actually. I don't think there is one on there, unless they open up the charter. So add a members page in there.
So I've got member updates, members links.
I'm sorry?
You haven't about this,
So yeah, if you go under our charter, let's see, here we go. It's probably gonna be outdated now, isn't it?
In terms of the home pages of the watershed protection district. Okay.
Mhm. This is actually updated, so my mistake. I did update this recently. I'll go through it again after today's meeting at least. But yeah, I mean, I'll add it to the email I'll send out for a follow-up, review this, review your organization, see if this is still what you want, because this stuff was before our time. So, so we've adopted into it, but make sure it still aligns with your goals and mission for your organization. So I'll add that to my to-do.
And I do appreciate everyone is busy, but I also would like for you to appreciate that we're working to try to update stuff. So when we're reaching out, please do us the favor of opening up that email so that we can get a response so that we can take action.
It's under About Us and then at Leadership Committee Profiles, and it will open up that PDF.
And again, our goal is just to make sure that everybody's voice is being represented and to showcase that as a council, we're all working very hard. The committee, the members, as well as the coordinator. Just because that, again, strengthens the watershed, and that's really what we're trying to accomplish here.
Vice versa, the member agencies go to the Watershed Council website too, on their individual agency websites.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's actually a really good idea, actually. Yeah. Give us a little bit more press, visibility.
And I might just give you information on the president of the creek, updated in the bike trail.
Yeah. Please do. Please do. It's when you guys come in, we'll put it up there as fast as we can.
I'm sorry, that was.
President Creek for Watershed Protection, WBD's boring project. Nobody noticed, but we drilled a 9-foot hole.
Would be great photo op, right? Wow, big hole. Everyone likes that.
Right where the freeway is more highway, the 4 highway. Near Ranch Road. Near Ranch Road.
Okay, no, that was amazing.
All right. Well, that's kind of the piece I wanted to share about. If you have nothing else about that, we'll move on to Lynn would like to speak with you guys for a little bit.
And we've already sort of been talking about some of this, but before I forget, I want to start out with meetings that I've been to recently, and particularly the one that Localizing California Waters hosted up in Yosemite that Andy and I both attended. There's a lot of focus on this watershed, a lot of attention being paid by the state to this in-stream flow work that they're doing and the funding that we're getting from the WCD grant. It sort of seems like we're like the poster child for activity. And a lot of it has to do with the nature of the watershed, the beauty of the watershed, the way that we're sort of self-dependent on supply, and because of the challenges that we face in this watershed are a microcosm of challenges that other places are facing. So a lot of focus on the Ventura River Watershed, at least at that event. So I just wanted to pass that along to all of you, that the work that's being done by this council and the work that's being done through this grant, both projects, the state board staff, Kevin Delano, who comes and gives updates to this group, and also the grant that you guys are going to be managing. There's a lot of energy in this watershed, and I think that's something to be aware of, and proud of, I guess. We're getting a lot of attention statewide.
Yeah, and sorry not to hijack, but just before we move on to the point, I was also, like I said, at that Localizing Waters. And we are actively trying to actually bring some speakers from there too to come present here. You know, there's, like you said, there's a lot of connections to made. It was a great conference. It was definitely that kind of, I guess, grassroots kind of vibe, feel good vibe, which is a great conversation to be had. It's an important conversation to be had, but there were a lot of important state officials there, legislature, and we had the ear of a lot of people. And as Lynn said, everything I go to, I went to the IRWM summit yesterday too. There's a lot of talk about this watershed. There's a lot of funding opportunity about this watershed. So just, keep that in mind that in the coming years, a lot of people want to start improving a lot of stuff here and bringing a lot of funding into the area.
And to that point, that's why we have to have clear communications, because these things are available to us, but if we're not clear about what we want to do and where we need to be, we're not going to be able to meet those deadlines. So we have to, again, make sure that we're just comfortable having the conversations that need to be had.
So just a couple of updates. I'm not going to take the full 25 minutes,
No.
I think. Just wanted to remind everybody that we did submit our plan, our RDM plan amendment to the state, and I got verbal confirmation that it passed their required, it's compliant, which is great, because that's sort of our ticket to getting funding in the grant. But more importantly, it's actually, there's information in there that I think is of value to all the stakeholders in the region. So in the interest of time, we did not send it out for public review internally before we sent it to the state. The state isn't going to hold us to, in other words, if we make any further revisions to it, it's not going to change our compliance standing. So I'm waiting for them to send us the formal letter saying, okay, this is, you passed. Apparently that they thought the plan was great, better, some of the other regions struggle. It's a hard thing to do because it's very extensive guidelines and requirements, plan standards for what's in the plan. And it is already on the website. The 2019 IRWM amendment is the first thing when you go to the watershedcoalition.org website. That's the IRWM plan. That's the first one there. It's broken into downloadable sections. I'm going to be running a public review of that as soon as I have something in my hand. And also, Arnie knows that I sent it out to the senior managers at the Watershed Protection District, because a lot of the content in the plan is information that comes actually out of Watershed Protection District, water quality data, groundwater information. And I was relying on some of that information is outdated and needs to be updated. So there will be some, hopefully, good feedback from your staff. And then once we have that in there, I think probably it makes sense to wait until after the holidays to release the plan for review, and we'll give people plenty of time. It's really our documents, and a significant amount of time goes into writing it, so I'm hoping that people feel there's a value there. It's just information. It's not as comprehensive as the Ventura River Watershed Management Plan, which is actually an appendix to the IRWM plan. But it addresses a lot of things that have been going on about climate change. It addresses some of the land use planning things happening at the county, addresses disadvantaged community issues that the state wanted us to focus on. So just wanted to give you that update. Our application to Prop 1 IRWM grant funding is going to be submitted, I believe, on December 6th. So there's projects, some of you have projects that are in that. Would you say that's moving along well? Are you involved in working with KJ on that?
I think so. We're trying to, I think.
Early, because she's going to be taking off.
Yeah, I was back and forth with her on submitting our information. I think, I don't know about the last one. Most problematic or not.
With Christine.
Yeah. And with Katrina, and yeah, I think we're moving forward. I haven't seen, we're gonna review the passage.
So you guys shifted your project, and so can you tell everybody what project is actually going to be in there now? Or what aspect of that project?
Yeah, so we had originally submitted the entire project of our east side and west side interconnection, which will allow us to move our water producing east end to the west side, whereas now most of our water in the city moves from west to east. And so originally was a whole project, and as part of the steering committee process, we were suggested to move it to phase 1, and phase 1 will be presented to
DWR. However, in follow-up conversations after DWR's review of all the projects and their feedback on that, the phase that they're funding these are directly tied to the benefits that are attributed to the project. Phase one, the benefits that are attributed to the project are that it would allow us to reduce our reliance on casitas in the river because we have an alternate way to serve our customers that currently only rely on those two sources. And phase one doesn't do that. Phase one just moves the water to a certain part of town. It doesn't get into the distribution area where we need this in the west. And so we decided to change it to phase two. And the phase one, phase two is was more of a prioritizing within the city, our CIP language. Well, some people didn't even want to call it phases ever. And so phase one, phase two are moving along in parallel. There'll be a little bit, it'll be maybe about 6 months. Tasks will be about 6 months later than they would have been under phase one. And it's a little bit less money. So minor revisions of the project and benefits are remaining the same. It's just that we switched it to phase two to better tie
I would say that that's an excellent result from having this conversation with you, Laura.
Yeah. So that would be good. And it was great. Caffrey came back on board as the manager of the grant applications team. She used to do that in the past and really only does it when there's a project that I is managing. But Christina Caffrey is the engineering manager at that time. So it's been great to have her back involved. And we'll do an assessment when it's all over if this one process, which included a 2-phase thing, putting in a pre-app, going to DWR in a workshop, and then submitting an application after their feedback came in, if that actually saves us any money on the application, I think we'll find that out. I think we already learned that it saves a little bit for the project proponents to pay for that cost. Because it was phased into these 2 little parts, and I think that.
Yeah, and compare what we paid this year.
We did look at that. I think we need to give feedback to DWR about whether this new approach that they proposed is actually more work or less work, and whether we liked it or didn't like it. So once that application is in, we probably want to have a conversation, at least with the project proponents and Kennedy Jenks, to see what you think about it. Because we do have another round of funding coming up in probably less than 2 years. So we want to be ready for that.
Well, and I think I'm sure it's just semantics, but whether this process, although more costly perhaps in some ways, leads to better projects and is meeting the objectives of the RRWM better. And it sounds as though through this iterative process that the overall objectives for DWR as well as the city were met.
Yeah, I think it was good. And I think overall, it helps the region narrow down our projects that we're going to be submitted.
So, but to that point, there was, this was new, and you were involved for the first time, in shepherding this process through, and we learned a lot. I think in the next, say, 6 months after the application is submitted, we want to have some conversations with the steering committee of the WCDC about the process. What would we do differently? What did we learn? What do we want to make sure we do, be ready for the next round and actually start. My takeaway from all of that is that we wait too long into the grant process because we wait for the proposal solicitation package to know exactly what the parameters are going to be. And then we don't have the in-depth conversations among the whole group in the watershed as what is the best thing to move forward and how are we integrating and making sure we have multi-benefit projects instead of waiting to see, well, who's ready, shovel ready. That's not necessarily what it was intended for. So I'm not saying the projects we get are not good projects, but giving more advanced time for the conversation about, where do we want to be putting our effort? What kinds of projects do we want to be looking for? And how can, if one entity is not ready to handle that on their own, like say Atlantis or It's happened in the Santa Clara watershed with the Nature Conservancy, trying to do something in a partner that can help pay the match and that can help you build a multi-benefit element to your project. That is really going to be more successful. So that's a conversation we should be having when it's not too much time has passed since we submitted an application and we're not doing a last minute shuffle like we often do when these grants come out. So maybe even a calendar of, okay, we expect DWR to release the PSP for round 2 in whatever, I don't know, September of 2021. How are we going to be ready for that? And having those conversations in the watershed, I think, is really important. Also in the context of the industry flow study and the GSA, the GSP development, there's going to be projects that emerge out of the GSP. There's projects in stormwater resources plan. There's projects in the pilot projects in the industry flow study, is like making sure that all of those dots are being connected and we're having a conversation about all the things that are happening, because that is our last, right now, the last IRWM funding earmark is in Prop 1. There's 4 water bonds being looked at right now. None of them have IRWM in them. The conversation that Andy was referring to, we had an IRWM meeting. It was actually the Roundtable of Regions held a summit yesterday in Burbank, and we talked a lot about what's the future of IRWM as a funding source, because a lot of entities across the state and people in Sacramento don't necessarily think IRWM, they're not sure they want to continue down that path, which is a little frustrating for everybody that's created a program around, not just around the funding, but around the way IRWM operates. So we're going to have some conversations about, we did have a conversation about those 4 pending water bonds, and the roundtable is probably going to do a concentrated letter writing campaign to the legislature, the legislators, about how we want to maintain the momentum that we've created, and we don't want to lose that, because all the other sources of funding before IRWM and then after, if there's is siloed. So you're applying for stormwater money, groundwater money, recycled water money. We can coordinate all of that in an IRWM program, but it's more challenging. So I just wanted to bring that up. That meeting yesterday was actually a really important conversation, because the new governor is all about water resilience. There's a water resilience portfolio that's been put out there as a framework, and there was a lot of public input on that. And then we're going to hear something back probably next month or so with a recommendation. And IRWM is so far absent in that. So we kind of don't know where IRWM is going to fall. And maybe we change the name? We don't call it IRWM anymore, and we call it regional resilience, whatever we call it, same thing. It's stakeholders getting together, collaborating, coming together with multi-benefit projects, combining their resources. It's more efficient that way. So we need to have a lot of good conversation as a group, and the council is sort of under the umbrella of our IRWM program. And so just as far as how we fund, where we prioritize in the watershed, what work is being done, it's going to get more complicated, I think, as we go forward. So I think maybe a meeting devoted, one of the watershed council meetings, a whole council, not just leadership. We probably need to have a good brainstorming session around where do we want to put our energy, and where are we going to be looking for money, and what is unfunded stuff like Mantelaha. And Paul had to leave, and I know you've had conversations with him, but probably a special focused conversation about Mantelaha funding at a meeting in February is important. And that 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, this council said Mantelaha is our number 1 priority. So kind of going back to that, and going maybe back to some parts of the watershed management plan, like we need sort of a blueprint for where we're all putting our energy, so we're not all reacting to a lot of disparate things. So
I would.
We do it never retired, use all kinds of institutional knowledge.
I'm trying to offload my institutional yeah, it's been an interesting 20 years in the field of water resource management. Has changed a lot. And I think that what we've gained through IRWM has been tremendous. We didn't always have the Nature Conservancy, the land trust, the environmental interests at the same table with the water agencies, and the GSAs are sort of having to do that too, but we've gained a tremendous amount of collaborative value. And we heard that yesterday, where there were little exercises where we put Post-it notes up about what works and what doesn't work. And I mean, IWM is not easy. This collaborative effort that we've been engaged in, it's a lot of work. I mean, and we don't always agree, and there's conflicts, but we've made it work. We've been doing this in this region since 2004, and some of the regions are newer, but they all agreed. Everybody that was at the meeting yesterday, and there were, I'd say 2/3 of the IWM, 48 regions were represented in that conversation. We're all like, we have created this thing that exceeded our expectations for what we've gotten out of it, what individual entities have gotten out of it, and then what we've gotten out of the whole. And I think we need to quantify that a little better, and then really nail down what are the things that don't work. And in some regions, it doesn't work well because of either the lack of commitment to collaborating and giving up maybe a little, or compromising or working together. Some regions are struggling with that, actually. But I think most of them realize, okay, now I'm not in, this watershed, maybe that isn't a good case, but we're not in court as much. We don't have as many, the legal conflicts have started to minimize because people are coming to the table, working together, putting aside some of their own individual interests. And I think we need to reassess for this watershed and for the whole region, what's working and what isn't, and where do we want to go from here, especially if there's no money for IWM. Do we continue this? Because that was a nice carrot. That was a very nice carrot.
So is there money if we changed it to resiliency?
There is no grant called regional resiliency, but perhaps the legislators can be convinced, and I've had conversations with Monique Lamone about this, and we've got other legislators too, is to say, if people have a problem with the title of IRWM, there's a baggage there that people don't like, and really it's resilience, which is what the governor's portfolio is all about. Climate resilience, drought resilience, flood resilience, all those things. If we kind of reframe it and call it that, that might be what it takes or all it takes. But right now there is no plan to earmark money just for that, but it's getting back out to climate. So if you've been tracking these 4 bonds, one is kind of wildfire focused, another one's climate focused. They have sort of little subset focuses. I think they're going to get rolled into one eventually, but they're not, we haven't done that yet. And I think we just want to make sure that there's some recognition of the regional collaboration around resilience, which is what IRWM is.
Could we do the name of the plan dash resilience plan? I mean, could we, so that it still covers past funding, and that it's also looking for the future just by hyphenating?
We've actually started doing that in the roundtable of regions, which I'm the co-chair. We put dash with regional resilience. I mean, we've actually started doing that so people don't think that we're like only focused on some little narrow self-interest around grant money, which is not what is coming out of it. I mean, we get money. We've been very successful in getting money, but that's not the only thing that we're getting out of it. So yes, I think we've recognized a reality out there that some legislators just have a bad taste in their mouth about it for whatever reason. And I think LA County has demonstrated there's some issues with LA County. The county of LA is managing the program down there, and I think how you were in that surgery, you saw what it was like in the North Santa Monica Bay subregion. It's a big bureaucratic
morass, agencies, and they all have their focus on where they want to go.
So that might not be the best example of IRWM, whether it can work or not. Maybe it should be 5 IRWM regions down there.
A lot of people don't trust the county.
But so I just wanted to share some of this with you because there's a lot of discussions going on right now. There's a lot happening between the in-stream flow study, the LCW event that we attended. That group, which is Regina Hirsch is the lead person for that, is obviously very engaged in on-the-ground work happening in this watershed already. She's working with the city of Ojai. She's doing pilot projects already with some other grant money from the regional board, I think. And so that group is sort of pulling themselves into the larger frame of statewide conversations. There were 9 members, I could not believe this, 9 members of the State Water Resources Control Board staff attended that event in Yosemite, which is, and then he didn't come, but they had invited Wade Crowfoot, who's the new Secretary of the Resources Agency. They invited Joaquin Escobar, the chair of the state board, and he wasn't able to make it either. But they had a couple of DWR staff. It was very state represented, and I think what they're doing is seeing on the ground resilience work and leapfrogging up to the state level, and they've sort of ignored the role that IRWM plays. We've been having some issues trying to make sure that they're recognizing there's already regional collaborations. So I guess for me, it's like, let's all work together. Let's find out who's got some, we're all playing a role. And so we'll see a lot more of the LCW or Regina's group, which is the Sierra Watershed Progressive. We'll see a lot more of them, as time goes on. And then we'll be hopefully collaborating over all the value that we all bring to this conversation. It's like all hands on deck with climate change. I don't think we can afford to have anybody not actively engaged and adding value and then recognizing the value for that. So that was my observation at the event, and it was 150 people attended that. And a lot of them were practitioners that do gray water and small scale, rainwater harvesting, property improvements type stuff, which is all really important work. And then there's the work that we do sort of on a more county-wide scale. And then there's the state. And the state is looking more and more to the regions to take care of issues related to climate change and adaptation and resilience. And we're well positioned we're doing that. So we just need to do more. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, but my thoughts on that is that the Ventura River in-stream flow project is a group of projects that likely would not have been funded through IRWM because of the process of it. And so
they're very small scale.
And so, that's unfortunate.
Right.
But that's why I think that there really should be 2 processes. There's the processes that can sort of decentralize projects so that they're fundable through the Wildlife Conservation Board, which is the funder for the in-stream flow project. But frankly, the IRWM process for large infrastructure projects that really require more of an IRWM, DWR process. So it would be very unfortunate, in my opinion, if one were to overcome the other.
Right.
I do think that they need to be part of the conversation. But I do think that the in-stream flow group of projects and the grant itself is important because it showcases that there is an opportunity for these smaller scale projects, decentralized. There's opportunity for them to get funded. So it sets a good precedent for other watersheds. And it also within our own watershed sets a good precedent because the Ventura River in-stream flow project itself is nothing more than a planning project. So we're going to end up with 25 projects that are at the
shovel ready,
that are going to be shovel ready, and so therefore are hopefully going to be able to be funded by Wildlife Conservation Board as implementation, as projects, individual projects, and that also gets them ready to be available for other applications for other funding agencies as well. But there are only 25 projects. And they're only in the Ventura River watershed.
And 12 of them are in the IRWM plan. So yeah, it's not just about IRWM funding. I mean, I think the plan recognizes that there's all kinds of worthy projects out there. IRWM might be a good source of funding for them or might not. And so, but for those of you that came to the watershed or weren't at the Watershed Council meeting where the one project that Regina's group brought forward didn't fare well because it was so small. And I know Bert and I have had this conversation in the past when you proposed something that's like rebates and, like a collection of on-site projects that are really great. I mean, but it's hard to, in an IRWM grant because of the nature of that. is it's hard to show the benefit. It's too, like you said, decentralized, so it doesn't fare well. And people ask really big questions of that project, which was very similar to some of the things that you were proposing years ago, Bert.
Well, I would go point blank. It wasn't even about that, Lynn. It was about that match. I mean, huge match for.
Well, 50%.
Oh, gosh. I mean, it isn't even about the multi-benefits. It's about, we can't afford to do these projects through that process.
With that grant.
Yeah.
So how do we support all the things, all the other sources of funding for things, and not just be only IRWM funding, right?
But again, for municipalities who have these projects, who have access to that match, I think it's fantastic that this exists for them to be able to take advantage of. Yeah. At the same token, we all have to be aware that we have local projects that simply cannot meet those requirements through the IRWM process. God love it, but it's a separate, so I think there just needs to be consideration. We need full support for both tracks, all hands on deck, but we're just on parallel tracks. I think that's appropriate.
And maybe focus our efforts not just on IRWM grant funding. Like, there's a lot of money out there that the State Board has, the Wildlife Conservation Board has, and that we all want to be supporting them regardless of where the money comes from.
You mean as a council?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I would assume.
It's not just a one, we only have one source of money.
And that is absolutely true. I mean, there are all kinds of funding opportunities that do come available, and they all have, obviously, we're all very familiar with what I'm saying right now. They have their specific requirements, et cetera, but we have to have those projects identified in order to be able to move forward, because the timelines come and timelines go. And so we need to be able to take advantage of them when they are available. And, obviously for our role as watershed coordinator, in this particular budget, there isn't anything that says that, we are being paid to actually write grants on behalf of the council. But we are a grant writing organization. That's how we survive. It's the only way we survive. And so we will take on that responsibility to further our own goals, and hopefully those will overlap with the council. But they are kind of separate.
We need to make sure Regina and Tom and some of the other watershed progressive folks can come to when we start having these discussions.
So they'll be obligated to it, because again, there is some money in there for the watershed coordinator in that grant. So and just the grant language itself is highly obligatory when it comes to outreach and education. This group, council, general membership, and the watershed itself is going to be invited to come to meetings with respect to that particular grant. The thing that I want to make clear, I started down that road and didn't finish it. There are only 25 projects in the Ventura River In-Stream Flow grant. There are tons more projects that are happening. So in my opinion, once we're done with Ventura River In-Stream Flow, there'll be Ventura River In-Stream Flow 2, and so on, following along the same path. So.
Motion for next week.
We're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I think unless there are further comments, we can go ahead and move forward to the last item in our agenda, which isn't that.
Motion for our next meeting.
Motion for our next meeting. So hopefully through our conversation today, maybe made clear there's a lot of stuff that we need to continue to discuss. We need to cover. So I think we are shooting for
March. Yep. Does someone have a date in March they'd like to propose?
We generally meet.
Meet the first Thursday.
I just want to walk into my head. We need to do a plan by June to March.
Yep.
Exactly.
But do you have funding through then? Or are you looking to get people to pay you now?
No. I want to be clear. When we submitted the 2019-2020 work plan, we were able to get a majority of the leadership committee members to pay their dues.
Okay.
So we do have funding. We just never got it adopted. However, during those conversations and through the process of finding out that there are some that weren't contributing, it became obvious that we needed to have these conversations. Everyone needed to be clear what the responsibilities were. So this is where we are now. But we are funded, and we've taken on the responsibility of doing the 2019-2020. So we will continue on with our responsibilities, so just be donated or shared as we run out of money. But we do have to have that conversation in March to prepare for the 2020, 2021.
Yeah, so it would be on Thursday, March 5th, if I could get a motion for that meeting. Thursday, March 5th. I get a motion to have that meeting.
And this,
All right, March 5th.
and so it's likely that that will be in the morning, 9 to noon, as is typical.
Yep.
And it will be strictly for the leadership.
Committee, yeah, yep.
But open to anybody.
Open to everyone, and it will be less nuts and bolts like what we were going over today too.
We'll clear that with Barbara.
Just as far as, I don't know about other agencies, but as far as budgeting goes, I pretty much already submitted my budget request for next fiscal year, and I try to anticipate funding increases in certain categories, but I don't know how other people will be able to commit additional funding at that point where they already have their budget.
That's a good point.
Thinking about increasing the budget.
That's a good point. Thank you.
I mean, like I said, I let go a little than ours, and I think March should be soon enough for other folks, I'm not sure. The bigger the agency, the longer the lead time. So just kind of thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Try to increase the budget. March is tight.
Okay.
I do appreciate that. So what would be, just moving forward, what would be the best time to start having a conversation?
January.
Well, I think January, I mean, I get asked in the fall, but that's not really feasible, I think, for most people. So I think January.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was originally what we were planning on. We just decided to because we had a request for an evening meeting to coincide with the project.
So I think if you could, if ahead, as far ahead of that March meeting as possible, send out some draft thoughts on budget options, or plan options in terms of hours, and different levels of increases, so that people can see that.
Right.
Ahead of the meeting, so they can have that in their own budget.
Okay, thank you.
And then we also need to come up with a formula. If there's already sort of a formula template for that, that would be useful as well to guide that.
It's simple.
Yeah.
I try to.
And then just a reminder, we do have that general council meeting coming up next month on the 5th, same place. So,
So we should send out this brainstorming, and I just realized it had a date that hasn't happened yet, December 19th, 2019.
Yeah, I had it on the last slide here.
My bad last year when I wrote it, but so it might be good to share this brainstorming session with everybody. And I have one more quick announcement that I forgot to mention. The Disadvantaged Community Involvement Grant we've been working on with Prop 1 funding in collaboration with LA County, or LA region and Upper Santa Clara. We've started our public outreach events. There's one tonight in Oxnard. We're focusing on 9 disadvantaged community areas of the state, of the county.
And none are in the Ventura Watershed.
We don't have them scheduled yet. There's going to be one so Pause is going to be working. I believe they're doing one on the Avenue and maybe another one in Casita Springs. We haven't gotten that far yet. The first 2, one was in Santa Paula and one tonight is in Oxnard. So we're making our way around the county, and we're actually spreading these outreach events out pretty far. I don't know if they've scheduled the one on the Avenue yet, but I'll find out. And I'll send, I can send a link to the Water Talks website where CSU is posting all these events. Because is the consultant or the NGO that was hired to do a number of them, and then the other 2 are the Friends of the Santa Clara River and the Sierra Club. So those 3 NGOs are actually conducting these events. The one in Santa Paula 2 weeks ago was actually held in Spanish with headsets for English. And they had stations from like Flood Mall and a couple of stations that were set up. And they got really good feedback. It was a Friday night, and they had 30 some people there.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And they were really excited. The members of the community were excited that anybody cared enough to come and talk to them about water and ask what they thought. So really showing, and these events have been happening already in LA County, and they've had incredible response to them. The one tonight is at the South Oxnard Community Center. And we are reaching out to the board members and other elected officials before each event so that they know about it and can be there. So when you schedule anything for this watershed, we'll make sure that you guys know soon. But I don't think I think we're looking at maybe March before we have an event in this watershed. And it had to do with the NGOs and their capacity.
Yeah, I know that the entire land trust is looking at trying to partner with cause to those ones.
Oh, good.
As well, so yeah.
So we're just working our way, and we're doing El Rio. I mean, the ones with the most population are well, the Avenue has a lot of population. So anyway, we're just working our way through. I wanted to let you know about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's it?
We are a little bit ahead of schedule. I think we probably all need a break. We do have the brainstorming material here, but maybe we'll leave that for another time.
I'm sorry, did you have something you want to add?
I just want to say, when we had the funding thing up, it kind of looks like Friends of the Ventura River is chasing a free ride, but I had to do a little sidebar with Paul to make sure, because Friends of the Ventura River is also an umbrella organization, and in fact, the Watershed Council is part of the Friends of the Ventura River. It never was, it hasn't been filed officially as a 501c3 or 4 organization, because it has all those organizations under it. We didn't want to compete with the fundraising in those organizations. However, when we fundraise, we put our money through Surfrider. So Surfrider's $500 is representing really $250 for Surfrider. $250 for Friends of the River. It's just the way we did it a long time ago, and we just kept doing that. The Friends of the Ventura River probably have 30 organizations under it, but they're mostly nonprofit environmental, so it's not like we have the budget. So we're not.
And I think that what needs to happen is just for that to be articulated so people understand that.
Well, it was with former
Okay.
it's just, it was not written down anywhere.
And I think that there just needs to be an appendix to the charter that just specifies that. Because, there will come a point where there'll need to be clarity, and without that being codified, it won't exist. But yeah, we just have to sort of be the leader for the coordination, and so we don't need to apply anybody to the preload by any means. It's just that,
They're in the Friends.
Yeah, they're under the Friends of the Ventura.
So
well,
and then that's where some of the money that's under Surfrider, under the Friends of the Ventura River name, but this way we don't have to do all the filing and stuff. Surfrider as one of our organizations, you have to do that for us.
Okay. Interesting.
Thank God for that.
Okay. Thank you.
all right, well, thank you
That's
so
meeting
much.
concluded.
Again,
Thank you.
appreciate your time and your comments and your feedback.